All right, episode 2 of the Lucas Grandsire podcast. I'm very excited about this guest today, Magnus Lygdbäck. Of course, a huge guest, actually, someone that I've been a fan of. Outside of MMA, I've been following the interviews, the work, the new YouTube channel. Of course, he is the personal trainer to the stars, the nutritionist, lifestyle coach, everything. Magnus, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you, Lucas, for having me.
Of course. Listen, the pleasure's all mine. First things first, though, today is Thanksgiving. Obviously, you're from Sweden. Are you doing any kind of celebrating since I believe you are in the States?
We are. I've been here 10 years now, so this is home. So we're doing kind of a combo. We're doing it not entirely the American way. We're going to have some Wagyu beef tenderloin that I'm going to grill tonight, and so we won't have the traditional turkey, but we're getting together with family, and it's a moment to stop and enjoy each other and have some good food in good company.
I know when I moved to the United States with my family, obviously Thanksgiving, it's like when you're from France, it's not relevant, right? Outside of the United States, it's just like this weird holiday. My mom, she loves the holidays, and we celebrate St. Patrick's Day. We're not even Irish, so it was like Thanksgiving. Yeah. It took us I think it took us 15 years to finally get the hang of all the weird food, right? The stuffing, or I guess called dressing. Turkey, though, I think we've accepted that there's no way to make turkey taste, good, or make it taste decent.
Well, I got 5 more years then. I've been here 10 now, so another 5, and who knows? I might be cooking turkey.
But turkey, is there, because since it is a lean source of protein, I'm sure that's something you mess with a little bit. Is that,
it's a great source of protein, but I'm all about enjoying food, and right. I eat protein sources that I really like and enjoy. So you don't necessarily need to eat turkey just because it's lean.
That's right. But
go for the leanest, the best food. I go for a good happy medium, or it's all about balance. So I think food should be enjoyed.
But we saw on your YouTube channel too, I believe your dinner is this nice salad, but you also have steak, right? So it's like, wait a minute, I thought steak was bad and stuff, but you look like you're eating like not only healthy, but it looks good too.
Absolutely. For me, it's all about balance. Life is about balance, and anything we do, whether it's training, work, relationships, or food. So for me, it's important that I like what I eat, and I make sure that 17 out of 20 meals is on point, and then 3 out of 20, I enjoy life. And I eat 5 times per day. So in 4 days, I think in 4-day cycles, right? So in 4 days, I can enjoy or tweak myself 3 times. And I make sure to eat, on point the other 17.
But so does the fact that you work with all these celebrities and nutrition and stuff, has it ruined food in a way for you? Because you're thinking of food sort of as fuel, as being healthy and stuff. Like if you were to go out and eat something greasy and disgusting, like, would you feel worse about it than somebody normal?
No, man. I love a good pizza or a dirty pizza, or I love food. I love wine. I love, not at all. I think that's the secret to my success, to be honest, that I can relate to people and to that whole side. I think there's nothing worse than a trainer who's all about eating, chicken breast and broccoli. Where's the balance in that? Where's the fun in that? And it's not sustainable. On a diet like that, you last for a week or 2, and then right. You're off. So if you know your stuff, you can actually eat food that you enjoy. You just got to look at the macros and how much protein, fat, and carbs do I have here, and just find a good system.
But so do you have a lot of guys that you work with where they show up and it's like, all right, I guess we're gonna be eating what is it, chicken breast, the brown rice, you mentioned the broccoli, like is everybody expecting that? And then you surprise them when you have a steak with your salad and you're eating food that actually tastes good.
Well, look at you, Lucas. You watch my video and you were surprised.
Yeah.
So everyone expects it. So if I go out to dinner, I get comments all the time, from people that are having dinner with me the first time. Oh, I got to watch what I eat, and we shouldn't order that. But no, I mean, people do think they expect that side, but don't get me wrong. I'm all about eating high quality food and staying away from sugar and fast carbs and the processed crap. But I do enjoy good food, and So should everyone.
And so we did mention the video. You mentioned that you eat 5 times a day. I believe you said it was like every 3 hours or something like that. What's your opinion on stuff like the intermittent fasting and things like, because it sounds like what you're doing is not related at all to intermittent fasting. Like it's sort of a different mindset when it comes to eating and stuff like that.
Well, this is a jungle, so I got to
Right.
be careful when addressing all these diets. There's many different diets, and I see them coming in 2-year cycles. Every second year there's a new trend, and I see the same type of diets getting reused after 8 to 10 years, and we tweak them a little bit and someone's making money. And there's diets work. First of all diets work, whether it's a ketogenic diet or intermittent fasting, or whatever it might be. Diets works. That's why we're doing them. Is that the way of life? Is that the best way of living? Is that the best for you? That's when it gets tricky. So there are benefits to fasting. There's also things that might not be so good. And same thing with a keto diet. Depending on your body type, you might do better on a keto diet than a traditional diet, but it's pretty individual. How you will, take up carbs and process carbs. And so I'm trying to be very humble when it comes to talking about diets and what's the best diet for everyone. It really depends on your body type and who you are and what works for you. But I don't think people should stay on diets for the rest of their lives. Life is all about balance and just enjoying. And with my system, you don't have to overthink it. I say you use your fists.
Yeah.
Eat a fistful of protein for lunch, a fistful of good energy, which could be slow carbs or good fats, 2 fistfuls of vegetables. Obviously, some people might have to eat more than that, but that's a good, the proportions are pretty good when you do that. And then it's up to you what type of protein source or what type of slow carb or good fat source you want to eat.
And speaking of the balance, we saw Joe Rogan. There was a while ago where he started this fad of the carnivore diet, and everybody was doing the carnivore diet. We saw all the videos. Everybody's doing the carnivore stuff. What did you make of that as someone who's about balance and being a nutritionist?
I think it's interesting because, veganism has blown up for the past couple of years. And then we have the total opposite that comes along, and I think it's interesting. There are a lot of benefits when we look at just eating meat, but there's also a lot of benefits to being plant-based. I always say being plant-based is the best thing you can be if you add some meats. We don't know enough about the carnivore diet. I'm pretty close to one of the leading professors within gut bacteria and gut health, Susanne Devkota. She's got her own research lab at Cedars, and she's been doing a ton of research on different diets. And she's in the middle of looking into the carnivore diet now, and we don't really know yet. But I just, again, that's such an extreme way of living your life. And let me ask you this, Lucas: why do we always look at the diet that will give us an extra year in life, or the optimal diet? What about or longevity? What about enjoying life and living life? There's got to be a balance, right?
Well, I mean, meat seems like a great way to enjoy life, though, to be fair, right? Like, we know everybody loves to eat meat.
Yeah, and especially here in the US, what people got to realize that the meat industry is pretty crappy.
Yeah.
You go to France, where you're from, or Sweden, where I'm from, and you talk about grass-fed. They don't really know what that is. Everything's grass-fed outside of the US.
Right.
So I'm very, very particular with where I'm getting my meat. I love meat. I think that should be part of your diet. It's okay if it's not. Do whatever works for you, but I'm very conscious about what I'm putting in my body when it comes to meat. I know what type of meat I'm eating. I know where it's from, and I think that's where you make the big difference.
It's interesting you mentioned the meat. Like when I was living in France, you know, that was the thing. We would go to the butcher shop and get meat, right? Your ground beef is made in front of you. Your chicken, you know which farm it's coming from. But in the United States, it's like you go to Walmart, you go to all these places, you can just get meat at the same place you buy like clothes and stuff like that. So it's crazy how different it is.
Correct. And you know, so when we do research on meat and correlations with cancer or other diseases, we don't take in the fact that, you know, is this an Oscar Mayer hot dog, or is this an organic grass-fed piece of steak that comes from this farm?
Exactly. If I understand correctly, though, you are a huge MMA fan. Is that what you told me?
Oh, diehard fan. I have not missed a single UFC show in over 12 years. I think I started around UFC 70 or 80, and I haven't missed a fight night. I haven't missed a pay-per-view. And, you know, I travel the world. I might be stuck in South Africa in a village somewhere, and I'll make sure to get it in. So, yeah, I'm a huge fan.
I mean, now's the perfect time too to be a Swedish MMA fan, right? Because we're seeing all of these Swedish names. Obviously, Gustafsson, it's not quite what it once was. He was a huge name. But we're seeing Hamza Chimaev, right, coming out representing Sweden. Who's like the guy that you're looking at coming out of Sweden? You know, most likely Hamza, right? But you're looking at and you're thinking,
it's him. I would say it's him because, you know, people have been talking about him, and people that knows, and now it's happening in front of our eyes. So, and I have to admit, I don't follow the Swedish MMA scene that much since I'm here.
Right.
So, yeah, I'll watch all the UFC shows and some of the Bellator, but definitely all the UFC shows. But yeah, there's a lot of good fighters out there, a lot of good Swedish fighters. But, you know, overall, I think it's fun to see fighters coming from all over the world now. I think, you know, look at Africa. Africa's going to pop within a few years. There's so much talent there.
Oh, for sure. You mentioned Africa. People think like Israel Adesanya, Kamaru Usman, Francis Ngannou, all these guys. Like Africa does seem like it's a very exciting place for MMA. Like potentially the future at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair to say that. And those guys had their skills, you know, tailored or trained somewhere else. But yeah, there's West African genetics. You can't just beat you can't beat them. They're just superior athletes, and it's going to be really interesting and fun to see how you know, African MMA develop in the future.
For sure. We saw a legend recently sort of retire, kind of not retire. It's kind of weird. Anderson Silva, we saw that last fight. What did you think of Anderson Silva throughout his career? Are you one of these people that thinks he's the greatest of all time? Did the drug testing stuff kind of ruin it for you? What did you think of Anderson Silva and his legacy now that he's called it?
That's a really good question. And I think we're constantly debating on who's the GOAT, who's the best ever to do it. When you have someone that skilled, that takes this beautiful art and master it so well and give us what he's given us, do you really have to put him against Jon Jones or any other of the big greats? Can't we just enjoy them for what they are? It's really hard to say who's the best ever. I don't want to say how can we compare Mighty Mouse against Anderson. I don't want to. I want to give them all the love and respect they deserve because they're unique. They're fantastic.
You mentioned Mighty Mouse. We got the flyweight title fight this past weekend, right? Figueiredo went out there, got this super slick submission. Now I'm seeing everyone talking about, how much better he is than Mighty Mouse, all that stuff. Have people forgotten the greatness of Mighty Mouse and what he was doing before he left?
Well, the human race, we're pretty we do forget fast. Just look up all the wars in history, we never learn, and we do forget. So yeah, I mean, he might be better today than Mighty Mouse today, but when you look what Mighty Mouse, when Mighty Mouse was at his peak, how can you? Yeah, it's hard to compare.
I think it's also the fact that Figueiredo, he's so exciting, right? He got this submission out of nowhere. He's knocking people out. I feel like fans are they like him more. And so the talk becomes like, oh, Mighty Mouse this, Mighty Mouse that. And you sort of forget this flying, that armbar he gave us against Borg and stuff like that. I feel like people almost want to like him more. And so it makes the conversation a little bit weird. That is
fine. But let's wait another 6 to 8 years, and then we'll make that judgment. Mighty Mouse been along for a long time. He's been so dominant for a long time. It wouldn't be fair to compare someone who's not been around that long with Mighty Mouse. So give him a few years and let's talk again.
Exactly. It makes a lot of sense. I mean, or, people were talking about Henry Cejudo. They were saying, the ESPN put out, and they were saying, who better to tell you about the flyweight division? I was on Twitter like, I can think of one guy there, the guy who helped start the division, the first champion. So I do feel like people are disrespecting him and they are forgetting about him, even though that's the way it works, especially in the UFC. It's what have you done lately?
I agree. But, fans are passionate. We don't really, it's not always common sense and logic. It's, how are you feeling here?
Right. Yeah, it's the heart.
And that's fine.
What was the fight or the fighter? What was the moment where you were in front of your TV watching fights and you realized this is the sport for me and I'm going to be watching every event no matter where I'm at?
Oh,
if you can pinpoint
there's so many, and I have so many favorite fighters. I think it was the rise of GSP, to be honest. This really humble, not average guy. He's far from average, but this regular dude who he wasn't a thug. He really, he got me into MMA, I would say, which is why he's my favorite fighter of all time.
So I assume with that being said, when you saw him come back and fight Michael Bisping, for you, that must have been this gigantic moment of, oh my God, he's back and he's fighting for another belt.
I was so nervous, nervous. And yeah, that was a great moment. And I like Bisping too. It's been kind of a misunderstood, I feel like, for a long time. But we saw in the end of his career what he really is. This beast champion, fighting with one eye. We know that. Yeah. That's insane to me, So yeah, not to take anything away from Bisping. I love him too, but yeah, it was great to see GSP come back and dominate the way he did.
It's funny you mentioned that stuff about Michael Bisping, because it's right. There was one point in his career where everybody hated Michael Bisping, right? He's a cheat, he's a this, he's a that. And he retired and now he's this hero. He fought with one eye. He, did it against this guy, that guy. But there was a time where, like you mentioned, people hated Michael Bisping, everything he said. Like
he always came off as a prick, right?
Yes.
He was kind of a prick. And that's fine. And he wasn't a dominant champion. He was always a top contender. And but then there's beauty in being around for such a long time at the highest level, never giving up, facing so many difficulties and just push through and becoming a champion. That's a beautiful story, and I think that people got to see him for what he really is and how he deserves to be looked at. So that was a great moment.
I think his fight against Luke Rockhold for me has to be in, like, if you're making a list of the top most shocking moments in MMA, it has to be there. And I remember the combo, right to the stomach, over the shoulder with the left. I mean, my jaw dropped. I didn't say anything for 10 minutes. I'm just sitting there like, did I just see that happen? Like, did you have a similar reaction watching that fight?
Yeah, totally. No, I didn't expect Michael to win. And that's been the thing with Michael, right? We never expected him to win the big fights.
Exactly.
And that was kind of the moment when he did, maybe for the first time, right? So every time he had a title shot or he was almost there, he lost. So yeah, I have to admit, I didn't expect it, but it was beautiful to see.
Did you watch the press conference afterwards? I remember, back then I used to watch all the he showed up, he had like a 6-pack of beer and he was, saying this, Luke Rockhold that. I mean, and he didn't care, and he got pretty drunk at some point. And that, I think that press conference, I feel like we need to talk about that more, because we don't get press conferences like that anymore.
No, didn't he show up drunk to a GSP press conference as well?
Something like that. Yeah, he doesn't care at this point. Yeah.
You got to love that, right?
Exactly. But he has a very like European, I feel like, attitude, sense of humor, right? You don't see stuff like that in the States. And I'm sure you and I, we can comment on that a little bit more than other people. But I think that's also why Americans kind of have a problem, because you don't see the way he acted sort of in America, if that makes sense.
No, that's the English working class. Exactly. I like that. I've been spending a lot of time in the UK and been working on a lot of different projects there. So no, he's definitely very European in that way.
When the fact that you work obviously with the nutrition and sort of crafting these guys' bodies through athletics and stuff like that, do you sort of study these guys' physiques when you watch the fight? Like, do you sort of look at these guys and think like, maybe this guy can improve this, or I really like what this guy's doing? Or do you kind of separate work from that stuff?
No. Obviously it's a part of what I do. So right. I do look at that, and I really look at how they move, the fluidity and how they move, and what how they're built, and what kind of how you're built versus what type of pace you put on, and combination of many different things. I think it's fascinating to analyze, for sure.
I mean, who's the most impressive physical? Like, you look at it, it's like, holy crap! Like, to work with a client like that, like who's the one that impresses you the most? Physically, the way they move, all that stuff.
You know what? There's a lot of them. There's a lot of MMA fighters. First of all, to be an MMA fighter, it's the hardest. You got to be good at everything. You got to have cardio for days. You got to be strong. You got to be resilient. So they're all beasts. But I love to see the way Conor moves, for example.
Right.
The stiffness and the fluidity, that perfect combination. I love watching Rashard Evans move.
Oh yeah.
Jon Jones. There's many. Israel is a good example as well. I think Dos Anjos, when he was a lightweight champion, he was scary. Physically, the way he moved, he had a couple of years when he might have been the scariest thing I've seen in the octagon. Then, I don't know. Then he kind of slowed down and wasn't that guy anymore. And now it looks like he might be back there. I don't know. But yeah, I remember watching Dos Anjos when he peaked, and wow, physically he was a scary dude.
I'm surprised you didn't mention the likes of, we think physical phenomenon, Roy Nelson, Mark Hunt, guys like that who are known for their incredible physiques at the heavyweight.
Yeah. Well, don't judge a book by its cover. and there's 3 different body types. Roy Nelson's a good example of someone who's an endomorph, who's always going to have a hard time getting a 6-pack, but doesn't mean that you can't build strength and muscle mass or endurance. It's just that you're going to look different. Daniel Cormier is another good example.
Yeah.
So yeah, don't judge a book by its cover.
That's right. And then Daniel Cormier, people were saying you should move down the middle weight because he was at 205. You should go to 185. And then Joe Rogan was like, you guys don't realize this guy is a tank. Like, if he tries to lose weight, he's going to lose a leg or something like that. People didn't quite understand, how he was physically out there.
No, and it's because people don't. Once again, he's an endomorph. He's never going to look like an ectomorph or a mesomorph, when a guy who walks around with a 6-pack all year round without doing anything. He doesn't have that body type. He never will. So it's easy to look at someone like him and think that he's overweight and he should drop down.
Right.
No, dude. He was undefeated at heavyweight. That's his weight class, light, heavyweight, and heavyweight. So it's just, once again, it's the knowledge or not knowing that we all look different.
And so the big thing with these physiques is as soon as we see someone that's a little bit more muscular than the average, guys like we mentioned the Africans, for example, Ngannou, Kamaru Usman, everyone's quick to go, oh, all of these guys are on steroids and stuff like that. As someone like you who works with these bodies and you're used to, crafting this stuff, do you sort of laugh or sort of look at these guys like, man, you're taking the credit away from all of their hard work?
Yeah, that happens all the time. As soon as someone, even in my line of work,
Yeah.
as soon as someone's, built an impressive physique, people are yelling steroids. But the interesting thing is I've done more makeovers with women, Katy Perry, Britney Spears, and they've done some huge changes, and they, have done similar changes or makeovers, and Alicia Vikander in Tomb Raider or Gal in Wonder Woman. No one's yelling steroids there. So why do we do that with men? Because it's a simple way of, someone sitting on the couch being lazy and not really know what's possible and not possible. And it is possible to build an impressive physique. So I don't think anyone in the UFC has a physique that looks like they have to be juicing. I mean, we know from 10 years ago during the USADA era, we can see before and after. We know that some people did it and fighters did it, and now they don't anymore. But no, I mean, Yoel Romero is a good example of someone who, but he's always looked like that.
Yeah, he's a freak.
and if you always look like that, you're not juicing.
How difficult is it for someone like Yoel Romero to maintain a physique like that? Because I've seen people say like you can't be lean all year round, or at some point you have to bulk up. Is it possible for someone like him to look, like a chiseled statue?
With the 0.01%, those guys exist as well. He's not. I don't think he's working harder than anyone else. That's how he was created.
And so we talk about the MMA, we talk about your line of work. I feel like it would make sense for you to cross over into the MMA world, right? Because you're doing nutrition and stuff like that. Like, why haven't we seen you work with more, or if you are working with fighters, I'm not realizing, but why don't we see you, cross over into the world of MMA and start working with them?
Good question. There's a big difference between sculpting a body and preparing someone to move or look a certain way and to work with athletes and sports. When it comes to fighting or working with sports in general, it's much more about performance and not the way you look. So yeah, I would do a decent job, but there are some really good strength and conditioning coaches out there who's been doing this for 10, 20 years and this only, and they would do, they would probably do a better job than me. I'm not saying I couldn't do it. I would love to do it. But there's so many good strength and conditioning coaches, and it's a different way of programming your training.
But you'd have to make the difference too. I don't know how much you use a scale today, because you mentioned you are, sort of sculpting a certain body, but with fighters, it's all about the scale, right? Like a lot of guys, they walk about 30 pounds over their weigh-in weight and stuff like that. But for you, I don't imagine you're someone that works a lot with the scale, right? Since you're trying to achieve a certain look and a certain, usefulness.
No, I could. I mean, to go back to the previous questions, I could work with MMA fighters, and it would be fun. It's not something that I normally do, and when you work with an actor, you're building a character, right? So, for example, when I prepared Alicia Vikander for Tomb Raider, we did MMA training a couple of times a week. Not with me. I took in, a really good instructor. We did climbing. The character needed to know how to climb. Did some cycling, and then strength training. So that's normally how I work. I don't know if that answers your questions.
No, of course. With Alicia Vikander, I feel like every time we type in your name, she follows. She's somewhere around. Like, is that one of the sort of people that you work with the most, that people associate you with? Like, they seem to. If we talk about her in Tomb Raider, they're talking about you somewhere. If they're talking about you, they're using her as look what he did for Tomb Raider. Is that one of your most talked about clients, even if it may not be, like the biggest name? You mentioned people like Katy Perry.
Yeah, well, I think people do talk a lot. You know, there's a connection there because she looked pretty damn impressive in Tomb Raider. She made a big change, um, and we actually did a lot of press when the movie came out as well. And I think it's just the whole media thing that I've done similar stuff in the past when it didn't get as much attention, but you know they still looked as impressive. I mean, I think Tarzan with Alexander
Oh yeah.
Skarsgård is a good example of something that I'm super proud of. But you know, we didn't do as much um, with the press and the media after or when the movie came out. So, but yeah, I mean, it's to answer your question. I think yeah, I do get a lot of questions, and I do get connected with Tomb Raider a lot.
But you mentioned the media because I saw Tarzan did a lot of media. I see you do stuff with the Men's Health, and that's where you explained the fistful. That's where I saw that for the first time. Are you enjoying doing the media, or because sometimes media they're very good. They know you, they know specifically what you're doing, and others you feel like they're sort of looking at their notes real quick, tripping over your last name, which is really the key of do you know who I am or not. I mean, are
No,
you
I
enjoy
don't
doing the
have a big
media?
ego, and that's fine. I have a hard last name, first of all. It's not easy to pronounce, but no, I mean, they're doing their job, and I'm happy to talk about what I've done. I'm happy to talk about doing press and talk to the media about. I think the world deserves to know what it takes to build a character, how much work that were put in, and how hard it is. So I'm happy to talk about it. On a regular movie, it's not only the workouts, it's taking in the chefs and creating the menus and making sure that the actors eat the right food at the right time, and making sure that they finish every portion as well. And it's time to rest and go to bed, and don't even think about going out tonight. And there's so many things that goes into it, but I'm happy to talk about that because they do work really hard to achieve those results.
But are actors good about, following the diet? I feel like there'd be some guys that'd be really good at it, and others where you get that text like 2 a.m. like, I just went to In and Out. I'm so sorry. Are actors pretty good about, following? Because I feel like not everybody would be super good at it. Like, mentally, it can be very tough.
100%. That's why you got to have the right approach towards nutrition as well. I think that's where, to loop back to your first question, it's good. They know that I'm not too extreme. When you build a superhero body, you need to be pretty damn extreme. Let me tell you. But I think I'm very hands-on as well. When I do these big Hollywood movies, I kind of step in and I'm with someone 24/7. I know what they're eating, when they're eating it, and I don't say yes to a job unless they know what it will take, and that they need to be up for it, basically. So I'm trying to, I get a lot of offers. I'm very blessed, but I'm saying yes to the projects that if it's someone I want to work with, and if I think they can really bring it, because every single job, it might be my last job. So every project I work on, that's going to lead to the next job. That's how I look at it.
So there's a big thing within the fitness industry where people they talk a lot about the supplements, whether you should be taking your branched chain aminos, essential aminos, your whey protein, which I've seen that is one of your snacks even when you're not working out, the protein, the creatine and stuff like that. How much of that do you incorporate? I mean, how much of it is bullshit and how much of it there really is an advantage to using some of that stuff?
Well, there's some bullshit, and there's some really good supplements. I mean, a branched chain amino acids, it's basically, to dumb it down, it's the best part of the protein chain. So it comes from protein, which comes from food, that we manage to extract the best parts of protein that will recover you as fast as possible. So when you're drinking branched chain amino acids after a workout, it's to take you from a catabolic state and put you back into an anabolic state. So that works. Same thing with creatine. Creatine does work, but neither of those two supplements work unless you're on top of your food, you're working out extremely hard, you're doing all the other things correctly. That's when you can start look at those types of supplements. But everyone should eat multivitamin and, you know, a big dose of vitamin B12 and some L-theanine. I'm a big believer in that, comes from the green tea leaf that lowers your stress hormones. I incorporate all those supplements when I work with someone.
So with actors, when you work with male actors, what's the most requested body that you get? There was one actor who was telling us that the most requested was Brad Pitt in Fight Club. Everybody wants to look that lean, that muscular. What's the one you get the most?
It's always the character. You know, I work mostly on movies, right? So when I did build Ben Affleck as Batman in Justice League, we were looking at Batman, who is Bruce Wayne and Batman. So it's not so much about what Ben personally would like. It's about who is this character. So that's the most important thing. Who is this character? How does he move? And how do we want him to look?
Ben Affleck is a ginormous human being. I don't think people really. He's like what, 6'4" or something like that.
Yeah, he's a big dude. He's packing on muscles. He's more impressive than people realize.
But the thing is, we've always heard, like, for example, with bodybuilders, always saying the shorter you are, I guess the more muscle you can pack on your frame. The taller you are, the more difficult it is. You've worked with this ginormous guy. Is that accurate, or is it more tough because he's so large?
Well, it's not. How can I put this correctly? The bigger you are, you put on the same muscle mass. You put on more pounds or kilos even, but you need to pack more muscles before it starts to look like a short guy would. You know, Alexander Skarsgård's a really good example as well. When he had gained 10 pounds of muscles for Tarzan, we realized that, wow, this is not enough. We thought it would be, but he, you know, so, you know, if you're tall and big, you need to pack on more muscles before it looks a certain way.
So how careful are you with injuries and stuff? Because we know with working out and stuff, you know, even doing 2 times a day, some people, they quickly get injured. I'm sure if you have 3 months to get someone gigantic for a movie and they get injured, that ruins everything. What are stuff you do to prevent injuries and things like that?
It's the number one thing I got to prevent. I mean, it's the most important thing. So what I do when I start working with someone, I do a physical screening. I look at how they move, and, you know, then we make sure the first period that we build a foundation of the movements, that they're strong and they can move correctly. Because if you don't do that, you're screwed. Because not only do I have, let's say, 3 to 6 months to build them up, then they're filming for 6 months, and they need to keep that muscle mass on and keep the body fat low and work all these long, grueling days. That's extremely hard, and they can get injured during that time as well. So, and that would cost the studio millions of dollars per day. So they cannot get injured. That's the thing. So you got to be really careful and be really hands-on and monitor all the time how they move and how do they feel. You know, are they tired, lethargic? How's their energy level? Do they get enough rest? Do we warm them up correctly before they do certain scenes? You know, so when I work with someone, I'm with them 24/7. I'm with them when they're doing the stunt work. I warm them up before they do all the physical scenes every day. I'm there on set, making sure that, you know, they don't get injured.
Have you ever had to pull someone to the side, like a director or someone, you know, I'm not too familiar with the movie industry, but have you ever pulled someone to the side and you're like, hey, if he does that again, he's going to get injured? Like, have you ever had to tell someone, you know, tone it down because you're about to ruin my client?
Every single movie. But, you know, I've also done this enough that they trust me. I'm an expert. I'm not there just to be an asshole and, oh, don't do this, do that. Yeah. To step in and be, you know, show that I know more than others. I'm there for a reason. I'm there to keep them together and make sure they stay safe and they look a certain way. Because shooting a movie is a marathon, it's not a sprint. So every single movie, you get into those discussions. Let's say you're standing outside, it's super cold, and you've been practicing or filming a fight for 10 hours, and you haven't been able to take a break, or you do end up in situations where you have directors who they don't really understand what it goes into it. Then I need to step in, and I need to make sure that my actor's safe.
Are you ever worried about, I think Ryan Reynolds explained that he worked with a trainer. He said, I worked with him for a week, wrote down everything he told me, and then, I just did everything myself. Have you ever worried about that? Like, you have a client that's just going to take everything you say and then, all right, thank you, Magnus Method. I'm just going to take it from here because I have all the info I need.
No, not at all. I'm happy to share. I have my training app. I put all my programs out there. There's no secrets. I'm happy to share my methods with the world. And I really believe in being open and sharing. It's never going to be the same thing as having me next to you anyways.
Yeah, that's fair. Because I was surprised when I saw your YouTube channel too, because for people that are interested in that kind of stuff, you really tell everybody everything. What does Magnus eat in a day? What does training look like and stuff like that? So you do think that if someone were to watch your videos, and they were to really know their stuff, they could come away with very useful information that, could potentially lead to a transformation or anything like that.
That's the whole point. I've had thousands of people that have made amazing transformations with my training app. And it's $1 for the first 30 days. And then it's like $8 a month if you sign up for a year. So it's not expensive. So that's why I'm here. That's why I'm on this earth. I'm here to change lives and help people to feel better, take people from darkness to light. I'm much more passionate about that than building the perfect bicep. So if I love that I have people that wants to tune in and watch my content and train with me online. That's what I'm really passionate about. That's my, the thing that excites me the most.
So speaking of YouTube channel, though, the first thing I noticed is, when a lot of people start their YouTube channels, they shoot it on their phones. They got a crappy webcam. I've gone through the crappy webcam with the fighter interview route, but your stuff, it was like, wow, this looks so good. What did you do for your YouTube channel to make it look so good?
Let me tell you, Lucas, I'm filming most of my stuff with my phone. I just started as well. I've had my YouTube channel for 3 weeks. I mean, I've done so much stuff over the years that we were able to pull all these good videos from interviews and Men's Health and GQ and Entertainment Tonight, whatever. So that wasn't really me. It's just out there on the internet, and we're just, pulled it and put it together. So I'm pretty basic, man. I'm walking. If you watch my last video about what I eat in a day, it was all with my phone.
Wow. So it must be the lighting that's good, right? Like I found, if you have the right lighting.
I don't know. Look at this. Not the perfect light today, that's for sure.
But that's the Magnus method too, right? Even the videos we're gonna bring a certain quality. Did you have a team of guys around you that sort of edit and take care of that stuff?
I have an editor, and I have a YouTube consultant because I'm 41. I don't know anything about YouTube. I need all the help I can get. So I'm not afraid of getting help. I think that's a strength to not trying to always figure things out or pretend that you know everything. Surround yourself with people that know better than you. That's how you create a dream team, and that's how you succeed.
So what's the goal of the YouTube channel? Obviously, you mentioned you help people in a lot of stuff too, but when you get on a new social media platform, there are obvious benefits as well to creating content, growing your brand. I mean, what was the goal when you started this YouTube channel?
Well, I'm not sure yet exactly what I want to do with the channel, but I have a ton of ideas, and I just want to take people with me in what I do. My life is pretty blessed. I might be standing on a movie set one day in South Africa, and then I'll be standing backstage at a concert watching my artists perform in front of 20,000 people the next day. So, and other days I'm just, driving around in LA, seeing clients and working on projects, working on, everything from my clothing line to online training, whatever it might be. I have a ton of different projects, but I just wanted to, and I guess inspire people, other trainers and people that are interested in knowing more about what I do, educating people about training, nutrition.
And I mean, we see you build these characters, right? Like Tarzan is a great example where even he was talking about his diet, and everywhere he went, people were talking about his physique, and that's what we call the Magnus Method. Are you like watching these movies? And I feel like if I were in your position the whole time, I'd be like, I did that. That's six pack. That's Magnus. You know what I mean? Like, do you sort of admire your work when you go and watch these movies and think like, wow, like, I had a hand in that?
Yes and no. I mean, what's the best way of putting it? I try to stop and really take it all in and really be proud of what I've done. But naturally, I'm inclined to move on to the next thing and not stop and think so much, because we're all humans. No one's better than anyone else, and I don't want to. I'm not trying to be. Just want to stay humble and do what I do, which is waking up and helping people every day.
Who's the biggest physical freak that you work with? We talked about the people in the UFC, but the one where they started doing stuff and you thought to yourself, like, holy crap, is this even a human being? Like, who was the Yoel Romero that you've worked with that really impressed you?
Well, the Yoel Romero that I worked with was Jimon Honsu, the actor from Benin. Yeah. He was on Tarzan, and he's a beautiful man. He's a bit older than me, but his physique was just insane.
Yeah.
I love seeing that. But yeah, there's been a few. I love working with James McAvoy as well to see. I remember, how impressed I felt when he, where he started, and just in 3 months, he really built a fantastic physique. That was awesome to see as well. But yeah, I keep coming back to Jimon Honsu. That was my Yoel Romero that I worked with.
What's the craziest, like, because we know studios, they tell actors, like, you have 3 months to put on 30 pounds of pure muscle. Like, they have these unrealistic things, or actors like, how am I going to do that? What's the craziest ask that you've gotten where you're like, look, man, there's no way that's realistic? Like, that, because it's always the short amount of time that really is the unrealistic part.
Yeah. Well, honestly, it doesn't really happen like that, because they don't really know what it takes, and they never have. It's not the studio that's demanding 30 pounds. It's always a conversation between the director, the actor, and with me. And then you talk about what they would like to see, and then it's up to me to explain what's realistic and not, because they don't really know. So, they might show me a picture of The Rock.
Yeah.
Can you help us to get this actor to look like this in 3 months? And then it's up to me to say, no, that's never going to happen. Not even in 20 years. So they don't really know, which means they're pretty good with not demanding stuff. It's a conversation. So it's more, they ask me what's realistic, and I'll tell them. And then we try to, meet the demand.
It's funny you mentioned The Rock, because something that led to my interest in fitness, losing a lot of weight and stuff, I looked at The Rock and I was like, man, if I could be a mountain of a man like that, like The Rock. But then you realize, you listen to what he eats, where he eats like a whole lake of fish every day, and then all this rice and stuff. I mean, what's the closest you think like a regular person could get to trying to look like a mountain of a man like The Rock?
Well, it's all genetics. He's a big guy. You look at his father as well. It was a muscly guy. He's been working out his entire life. Most people will never get there. I could never get there. So, and I've been working out my entire life. So it comes down to hard work and genetics. If you don't have the genetics, you're not going to look like The Rock.
You just crushed a lot of people's hearts right there.
Well, you can look the best version of you, and everyone can get a 6-pack, and everyone can look fantastic, but you can't look like The Rock.
Right. You have to be this gigantic Samoan dude. It's just, yeah, it's not possible.
No.
But something that, I'm doing my research, I'm watching a lot of your interviews and stuff. And one thing we noticed that there's a couple interviews, especially with Tarzan, where you didn't have this magnificent, very Swedish Viking beard that you have. Like, it was a little bit of scruff. And now you've got this magnificent, all filled in beard. What went into creating the Magnus method of beards?
I don't know, man. I like change every once in a while. So, I always had a little, but I grew it out about 5 years ago, I think, and just kept it.
So
but who knows? I might take it off tomorrow.
See, that would be my fault because I brought attention to it, and now you're thinking about it too much. So it would be my fault.
No worries.
But so during the lockdown, though, a lot of people went through the struggle of, the hair. A lot of people didn't realize, like, we can't go to the barbershop. You've obviously got this magnificent undercut to go along with the beard. Did you start to look like a caveman during quarantine?
Nope. My beautiful wife's a hairdresser.
Oh, so wow.
I'm one of the lucky ones.
Oh yeah, so you got to look fresh throughout. Like myself, for example, I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna buzz it a little bit short. That way I'll look normal. And I put the thing wrong on the clippers, and I was bald all throughout quarantine. If you look at my YouTube, I do interviews with a hat on, and I had people tell me, like, take off the hat. You look like you're 12. It's like, now if I take it off, I'll look 40 because I'm bald. So it was a struggle.
I would have loved to see that. Yeah, I think let's be fair. We're all struggled with something during quarantine, and now it looks like we're going back to some sort of lockdown again. So, worse things. There are worse things than a bad haircut during lockdown.
There are worse things than being bald. But it's an interesting thing you mentioned struggling with, because a lot of people were having trouble with their physiques and stuff. You obviously, to be the kind of trainer and nutritionist, if you're this great big hulking fat guy and you're telling people to eat their fistful of vegetables and all that stuff, I don't think anybody would take you seriously. I mean, do you have that pressure of you have to have this certain look that people take you seriously and they're like, I want to listen to this guy?
Yeah. I mean, in theory, I always say, if you look at a football coach, he's not the best guy playing football, or he doesn't look the part, but he's got the knowledge. And that's how it should be with a trainer as well. But there's also that whole credibility thing. If I haven't made that journey myself, if I can't show off a six-pack, why should you listen to me? So, yeah, I do feel, I wouldn't call it pressure. It's good pressure. It may, I do think it's important that you practice what you preach, to be honest. So, the pressure's not bothering me at all. I do want to practice what I preach.
That makes sense. Something I'm curious about, the bro science. People always talk about, bulking and cutting. Like, you bulk to put on muscle, you cut to try to keep as much muscle as you can and look lean. I've heard some people talk about this thing, the body transformation, where you're in a calorie deficit, but if you do it correctly, you can still put on muscle, still lose weight. Coming to the man himself, is that possible, or is that what we call the famous bro science?
Totally. You can build muscle mass and lose body fat. It's easier for someone who's not in shape to do that, actually. Someone who's already in good shape, it's a bit harder. And it's the same thing, I would never be able to put on 10 pounds of muscle in a year, but take someone who's been eating like crap and not going to the gym. Yeah, they can put on 10 pounds easily in a couple of months if they do the right things. So it's the same thing with losing body fat and building muscle mass. If you start from scratch, that's actually pretty easy to do.
And so getting back to MMA a little bit, because I know you are a fan and this touches it, but Jon Jones released this picture where he was, hulking over this barbell and tells people I'm up to 240. I've gained, 15 pounds, pure muscle. Obviously, a lot of people are like, that's steroids. Jon Jones is doing steroids, all that stuff.
Yeah, I don't believe that at all. He doesn't look like he's on steroids. 15 pounds is nothing because he's been making weight to make 205. Yeah. So he's never been allowed to eat or build to his fullest potential. If he did that, he wouldn't be able to build 15 pounds of muscle mass. But this is a fighter who's been forced to stay at a certain weight. So we don't really know his potential, but look at his brothers. They're huge. So I think his body wants to be a lot bigger than what it is at 205. So no, there's nothing funny about, the weights he's lifting or the weight he's gaining. And I think when you look at his old tests, that's the thing. I hate steroids. I hate doping in MMA. I really do. I hate it with a passion. But we also got to be, when you look at certain tests and there's a picogram of something that Jon Jones, for me, it's obvious that he got that in his system by mistake. I mean, it's not enough. It makes no sense. It makes no sense when you look at when the amounts and how he's been tested.
So what do you expect from his time as heavyweight? Because a lot of people are talking about you put on this muscle and then you have to get used to it. Is he going to be able to perform? Is he going to get slowed down? What are you expecting when we finally see him make that big debut at heavyweight?
Well, he's always delivered. He's a fantastic fighter. It's super simple. If his head is right, he'll dominate heavyweight. He's got that potential. It's all about where he's at in his life. He's made a lot of bad mistakes, and we're also seeing that he has not changed for the better. He's been keeping doing, making these mistakes, even though he shouldn't. So it all comes down to where he's at here. As a fighter and physically, he's gonna dominate. He's an unbelievable fighter.
I mean, even, physically, when you find out that now he's at 240, which, we know the optimal heavyweight is about 235, 240, somewhere in that range. He's 6'4", which is gigantic. It's the same size as Ngannou, as Stipe, all those guys. So it does seem like physically, if he does things right, and like you mentioned, mentally, we could see an amazing Jon Jones up at heavyweight.
Totally. I mean, look at Daniel Cormier, how great he was at heavyweight. Why would Jon Jones be any different?
Exactly. That's a great point. He's 5'11", and people thought he was undersized at 205, and he was out there killing guys. So, and at heavyweight, he's doing it too. So it's a great point that you bring up.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see for sure.
So speaking of heavyweights, though, this weekend we have Curtis Blaydes taking on Derrick Lewis, which I assume you're going to watch. Like you mentioned, watch every. What's your interest level in this fight? Because we know that Derrick Lewis likes to bang, which standing bang in this case. And then we know that Curtis Blaydes went out there and he's like, listen, if I can just wrestle you, put you on the ground and do nothing without getting hurt, I'm going to do that, which has soured people. What's your interest level in this fight?
Well, here's the thing. They're athletes, and there's nothing wrong with what Curtis Blaydes is doing, but he's not going to gain any fans.
Yeah.
I'm not going to love his fight. I'm not going to, I'm not dying to tune in, watch a guy like that fight. I give him all the respect. He's competing with the best in the world in the most extreme sport. So I have no opinions about the way they're doing things, but is he going to make more money, get more fans, and get people excited about it? No, but he's got to be okay with that. Derrick Lewis will though.
That's right, because his balls was hot, Popeyes, all that fun stuff.
Well, it's simple. If you're in the business of fighting, what's your goal? To win as many fights or to make as much money, get as popular as possible, build a huge platform by wrestling people and not do anything else, put them on their back, you're not going to get, one of them, that's for sure.
And the thing with Curtis Blaydes is he has the potential to do that. I mean, we've seen him. He's athletic. He's got good hands, because we saw him against Junior Dos Santos and knock him out. So he has the potential, if he really wanted to, go out there and do something like that.
Yeah, it's all up to him. I mean, he can get the win, or he can get the win and do it. And it really depends on what he wants to do with his career. And I don't judge, nothing right or wrong. If you want to score points and win a fight and be boring, up to you. I don't expect to get a bigger paycheck and have fans screaming your name.
That makes a lot of sense. Derrick Lewis is a fighter. We know he's at heavyweight for a reason, and he always mentions surviving off a diet of Popeyes, right? He got the free Popeyes. when you hear something, I assume Popeyes, that cannot be Magnus Method. Is there a part of you that sort of cringes when you hear about guys, you know, getting their lean protein from Popeye's chicken?
Do you know what I mean? You can't take his word for it. Maybe he's actually speaking the truth. He's one of those guys that might be speaking truth, but he's also a funny guy. So, you know, I'm sure he's eating other protein sources as well. But yeah, what I can see when I see someone like him, I can see his potential and where he could be. And he's already, you know, at that level, but with the right adjustments, a guy like that could be, you know, world champion.
And so let's end it with this. Who's your official pick? Who do you have winning that main event? Are you going with stand and bang Derrick Lewis or get it done fundamentally Curtis Blades?
Oh, well, if Derrick connects, it's probably game over. But you know, I do think Curtis Blades is really good at following his game plan, taking people down, grinding people out. So it's a pretty bad matchup for Derrick Lewis. But we know if he connects, it's yeah, it might be game over. You know, it's a 50-50 for me. What do you think?
It's tough because you look at it and you're like, if you're a betting man, the safe pick is Curtis Blades. He's going to take you down. He's going to get on you. And if Derrick gets tired, he gets a submission. But like you mentioned, like, you know, we saw against Volkov, right? He was losing the entire fight at the very last minute. Boom. So
yeah, it's one of those fighters. If he connects, it's you know, Ngannou, same thing. If he connects, it's going to be a bad night for his opponent.
Exactly. It's terrifying, but it's got to be so good too to have that kind of power, to know that no matter what's happening, if I can just get a good one in, like, that's it, I got it.
Well, you see, that's why they double down on that knockout power and they don't work on their other weaknesses. And that's where I think someone like Derrick, I think Derrick Lewis has been working on his weaknesses, because we can see him improving all the time, which has been impressive. But he's definitely been, you know, doubling down on his knockout power.
All right, so there we go. It's been a little over an hour. It's been an honor and a pleasure to have you on, Magnus. I really appreciate your time. Thank you for coming on. It means a lot.
Thanks for having me. It was really nice to not only talk training, but to get to talk a little MMA as well. That's I hope I don't get a bunch of fighters coming after me now.
Yeah, Curtis Blades gonna come in your DMs like, oh, so I'm boring? Like, you know, I don't have a fan-friendly style?
Well, Curtis, you could have twice the fans.
There we go. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. We're going to end the broadcast here. Magnus, though, before I let you go, or before we end this broadcast, where can we find you on social media? And if you have anything to promote, now's the time.
So on Instagram, I'm on Magnus Lygdbäck or Magnus Method. My YouTube channel is Magnus Method. And then I have a training app, which is MagnusMethodApp.com. So for $1 for 30 days, you can, you know, train with me, do all my different programs, and there's a nutrition plan included as well.
All right, there we go. Everybody check it out. And Magnus Lygdbäck, thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Lucas.